Fibroids generally do not just disappear by themselves. They will usually need some form of treatment or intervention to do so. Is surgery truly the only answer we have in this modern age? There's a lot of information about fibroids. It's available on the internet, in different books, and everyone who has something to say about fibroids and their experience with it. This is not surprising because there's actually quite a lot to say about fibroids. But the question is just how factual is some of that information out there. So in this video, I'm quite keen to explore what you really believe is true about fibroids. So let's start with the best way to explore this, with a quiz, of course. Fibroids always cause painful symptoms and heavy periods. Is that true or false? Next, which of these is not a treatment option for fibroids? Surgery, medications, natural disappearance over time, uterine fibroid embolization. And next, at what age are women most likely to develop fibroids? Is it in their 20s or the 30s? Is it in their 40s or in their 50s? Okay, so I would really love to know what you think about these questions. Please let me know in the comment section. And if you find yourself a little bit unsure about any of them, don't worry. By the end of this video, you will have a clearer picture of the facts and more. Fibroids are the most common benign growths of a woman's reproductive organs. They're a very prevalent issue that many women face. They develop from the middle, that is the muscle layer of the womb. Fibroids can cause a range of distressing problems. Abnormal periods with heavy, irregular, painful bleeding, back pain, constipation, bladder problems. In some cases, they can present with challenges getting pregnant. There are also other symptoms. You might get one fibroid or many. They can be small or grow to huge sizes. The numbers can vary from place to place, but roughly 66 in every 100 women will have fibroids. And fibroids can happen to any woman. But for reasons that are not quite clear currently, they happen more in women of black race, African origin, African American, Afro-Caribbean. In fact, studies tell us that African American women have a 2 to 3 times higher risk of developing fibroids than other women. So with that bit of background information about fibroids, let us tackle some myths. The first is fibroids always cause symptoms. I just mentioned some of the troublesome symptoms that fibroids can cause. But what may surprise you is that only some women get these symptoms. Like I said, about 66 in 100 women roughly will have fibroids. But amongst that number, many of them will not even realize that they have fibroids. So let's say we find 100 women who have fibroids. 100 who have fibroids. Our studies suggest that around 33 of them, or a third of them, only will have symptoms of the fibroids. The majority of women do not know they have fibroids, they are not aware. Even more importantly, they are not bothered by the symptoms. And this includes the fibroids not affecting their chance of getting pregnant. Myth number 2 is that fibroids always require surgery. Now, the question of fibroid treatment creates a lot of controversy. And perhaps this is because we don't fully understand what causes fibroids. And so we have many treatment options that hope to tackle the problem. But from the offset, this myth is quite wrong. We've already established from the first myth that it's possible for you to have fibroids and not even be aware and not struggle with symptoms. So clearly, such a person will not need any surgery. But let's take a look at those fibroids which do cause symptoms and so demand that we have to do something about them. Is surgery truly the only answer we have in this modern age? No, it isn't. We recognize the impact of hormones in fibroids growth or development, in particular estrogen and progesterone. But we also think that habits, lifestyle factors, and even the environment around you could have something to do with their growth. Being overweight, smoking, eating red meat, exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs, eating processed foods, low vitamin D levels, these are some of the factors that could be related in the growth of fibroids. All this knowledge has led us to develop drugs that counter the hormone effect, and they help us to recommend the healthy practices that we feel will drive the growth of fibroids down. They may vary in terms of how effective they are, but they can be alternative options to surgery for women to consider. So please check out my free guide here, where I talk about the different medical options for treating fibroids. You can download it from a link in the description box below. The third myth is that fibroids are a form of cancer. So you might find this surprising, or perhaps you've not heard of this myth before, and I'd like to hear whether you've heard or are aware of any possibility that fibroids are linked to cancer in the comment section. But if you're listening closely at the beginning, you recall that I said that fibroids are benign growths from the muscle layer of the womb. So fibroids are usually benign. Benign means that the fibroids will not invade or grow into or spread into the tissues that surround it. If that happens, then we're talking about a cancer or malignancy. But with that said, very rarely a growth develops in the womb that looks like fibroids, but it's actually cancer. It's known as a womb leiomyosarcoma, and studies suggest that the chances of this happening is nearly 9 in 1 million women or fewer. And why is this relevant? Well, it tells us it's important to monitor fibroids even if you don't get any symptoms. And if you do develop new symptoms, for example, irregular bleeding or pelvic pain, bloating, please see your doctor to get checked out promptly. Myth number 4 is that only older women get fibroids. What we know currently is that fibroids are most common in women in their mid or late childbearing years and older. So yes, you're more likely to find fibroids in women in their 50s than in women in their 20s. However, it doesn't mean that fibroids can't develop in women who are in their 20s or even younger, but it is rare. And the next myth to tackle is that fibroids shrink after menopause and no longer cause any problems. And this is one of those areas where fibroids still appear so mysterious, even though we've been dealing with them for so many years. Remember, we've said that fibroids growth are linked to hormones, in particular estrogen and progesterone. So doesn't it make sense that as the hormone levels drop when women approach menopause, they should be free of fibroids? They should naturally shrink and no longer cause problems. But sadly, we know this is not the case for everyone. In many cases, yes, fibroids do shrink after menopause. However, for reasons which are still not clear, some women develop fibroids, or the existing ones just remain as they are, or even grow after they've passed well into menopause. And this might mean that ladies who find themselves in this category have to think about treatment options, including surgery, to get relief from the symptoms their persistent fibroids are causing. So let's take a quick look at the answers to that quiz from the beginning. How well did you do? Fibroids always cause painful symptoms and heavy periods. Is that true or false? If you said false, you're totally right, because as we've seen, 60+% of women who have fibroids do not have symptoms. In addition, not all fibroids cause heavy bleeding or pain, but they may cause other problems like affecting the bowel or the bladder, or challenges with getting pregnant. Next, which of these is not a treatment option for fibroids? And the options that you had were surgery, medication, natural disappearance over time, and uterine fibroid embolization, or UFE. If you don't know what UFE is, it's an alternative option to surgery that is non-invasive. I talk a lot about it in this video. Please check it out if you want to learn more. But the answer, well, this is controversial, and of course we need many more studies to help us understand how fibroids naturally progress. Some fibroids will shrink after menopause and some don't. And so the consensus, and you might disagree with this, is that fibroids generally do not just disappear by themselves. They will usually need some form of treatment or intervention to do so. And lastly, at what age are women most likely to develop fibroids? Options were the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, or 50s. Fibroids are most common in women in their 30s and their 40s. Although they can also develop at older ages, they are more likely to start during the childbearing age, and the mid-30s tends to be the most common time. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the playlist on the screen for more fibroids information. Please share this video with a friend, and I'll see you in the next one.